Tonight, unions move their strike dates to shut down Scotland's schools. Unison, Unite and the GMB are planning for 3 days of action later this month.
Also making the headlines, a disgraced surgeon who harmed patients in his care could be extradited back to Scotland. The stage is set. Buildings prepare for Open Doors Days, giving the public a chance to peek behind the scenes.
No mean city, Glasgow is celebrating 40 years of STV's top cop show, Taggart.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Strikes in Scotland's schools have been called off next week, but more widespread strikes look likely at the end of this month. The biggest council workers' union, Unison, is expected to announce strike dates in 24 local authorities tomorrow.
But council leaders are expected to make an improved pay offer next week. Well, our political editor, Colin Mackay, has been following this. So, Colin, what's happening?
Well, this has been going on and on, hasn't it? But firstly, there is some good news for families because the GMB have called off those 2 strike dates planned for next week. But there is bad news because all 3 local government unions, Unison, Unite and the GMB, look like walking out for 3 days at the end of this month. Now, Unison is the biggest of the 3 unions. It has a strike mandate in 24 councils right around the country, including all of the big cities. Now, they look set to tell councils tomorrow that they intend to walk out on the 26th, 27th and 28th of September. That's just after the September weekend in many council areas. And they reckon that they could close almost 4/5 of Scotland's schools, almost 2,000 schools around the country.
And Colin, is there any way to stop this?
Well, council leaders met yesterday. They're expected to make an improved offer at a meeting with the unions next week, although the unions haven't formally been called to that meeting yet. Now, they're looking for at least an extra 1%. That would cost £100 million to make it even worth putting to their members in a ballot, because the unions have a very strong mandate from their members. Between the 3 unions, they have mandates for strike action in 26 of Scotland's 32 councils. They want COSLA, the council leaders, to go to the Scottish Government to ask for more money to resolve this dispute, just as happened last year. And unless there is a better offer, then you're looking at strikes in Scotland's schools at the end of September.
All right, Colin, thanks very much for bringing us up to date.
Don't tell and don't be a victim. Just some of the stigmas associated with discussing violence in our communities. Now, a study has found that repeat victims of violence don't report the abuse they suffer to the police, even in cases involving serious injury and hospitalisation.
Factors like poverty, substance abuse and violence in the home all play a role in whether or not victims feel comfortable to come forward. Vanessa Taff reports.
And people worry and it causes stress.
Tied together by their shared trauma, this group have all either been a victim of violence or carried out a violent act. For those like Duncan, it was the norm during his childhood.
It wasn't a shock when you seen your wee ma getting scalped or punched. I've done things that I'm not pleased with. Things have happened to me that I'm not pleased with, you know, but the things that happened as a kid, you could how can you tell? Because you're drummed in not to tell nobody. You know, so your fear is saying, gonna know hit me or gonna know.
Leading sessions on dealing with violent behaviour as part of Scott's way of coping with his violent past.
I've been stabbed, I've been hit with bottles, and quite bad stuff. And I've also done these things to people as well. It has all got a knock-on effect. If you're spending all your time outside the house and you're in an environment where there's violence and there's chaos and drug use and drink, you're more likely going to get roped into that.
It is alright to tell somebody, it is alright to talk.
Despite the openness here, support can often be difficult to access.
We have great policies and procedures, we have great legislations, but do we really follow them? You know, is the resources in place for these people that are tinkering on the edge of potentially being a perpetrator because, you know, they have so much bad lived experience, they're caught up in their cycle of addiction? What are we doing for the tinkering on the edge people? We're not doing anything, we're waiting until they go into remand, and then we're not doing anything when they're in remand.
Research has now found that many victims of repeated violence aren't coming forward to the authorities.
It's not out of the ordinary for them, it's something that becomes every day, which is not to say that they accept that violence, but they become to see it as something that is normalised within their communities. There are also social rules about whether they should report to the police, and when they do report to the police, they often feel disbelieved or discredited.
Learning to cope with the effects of repeated violence is an everyday challenge for victims like Duncan.
See if I gave myself time to think before I say something or do something, I can get it right.
And it's time and support alongside peers that's helping to break the cycle. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
A disgraced surgeon who harmed patients in his care could be extradited back to Scotland. Professor Sam El-Jamal was suspended from NHS Tayside in 2013 and is now thought to be in Libya.
The Health Secretary, Michael Matheson, will set out plans for an investigation tomorrow after serious concerns were raised in an internal review. He said extradition could be used depending on a police investigation. Lynn Rankin has more.
I live with permanent pins and needles in my hands and my feet.
13 years ago, John Grant had surgery to remove a protruding disc in his spine. The operation carried out by Sam El-Jamal caused irreparable nerve damage and a life of constant pain.
I complained to him that it wasn't right and was just rebuffed. And I saw that other surgeon was told that, yeah, your spine, parts of your spinal column have been severed. Nothing you can do about it.
We need a public inquiry!
John joined a growing group of patients outside the Scottish Parliament. The blood may be fake, but their pain is real, as they continue to push for a public inquiry. El-Jamal was under indirect supervision when he operated on Jules Rose. He removed her tear duct instead of a brain tumour. The following day, he was suspended.
Professor El-Jamal has been performing surgery on patients since 1995, so that's 18 years. So our concern is how many more. There is thousands of patients out there that have been severely butchered.
The Health Secretary today said El-Jamal could be extradited back to Scotland from Libya, where he's currently working. A review by NHS Tayside released last week criticised the decision to initially place him under indirect supervision instead of suspending him. The internal report said he may have operated on more than 100 patients while he was being investigated.
There are aspects of information in there which are new to the Scottish Government, which I'm surprised that we're now hearing about now. But alongside that, I also want to make sure that we have a process that patients feel that they can get answers about their own individual cases as well, which is why tomorrow I'll set out in Parliament a process that will allow us to do that.
With 146 patients now involved, this group is growing. So too is their fight for answers. Lynn Rankin, STV News.
To other stories, and the First Minister is defending his measures to tackle poverty after claims they are a missed opportunity to help more people. Humza Yousaf set out his programme for government at Holyrood yesterday. His plans include an expansion of childcare provision as well as increased wages for social care and childcare workers. But charities say they were looking for more.
Overall, we were really disappointed. There's 1 million Scots, 250,000 of our kids living in poverty just now, and it doesn't go far enough. We needed to hear more about getting money in people's pockets, more about housing, more about childcare and the barriers to employment, and we don't think Programme for Government went far enough. It was a missed opportunity.
I fully expect and understand why the Poverty Alliance and other organisations would want the government to go further, but within the confines of devolution, the actions we've taken, and on top of that, the actions that I've announced to expand anti-poverty measures, that is why we are estimated to lift 90,000 children in Scotland out of absolute and relative poverty.
The cost of posting a first-class letter is going up by 15 pence from October. It means a first-class stamp will cost £1.25. That's more than double the price it was in 2012. Royal Mail says it's facing increasing cost pressures and a challenging economic environment.
The lead vocalist of Runrig, Bruce Guthrow, has died at the age of 62. The singer-songwriter joined the band in 1998 and remained with the group until its final performances in 2018. Former bandmate and now SNP MP Pete Wishart said the Canadian had been the nicest person you could ever hope to meet, a joy to perform with, and an exceptional singer-songwriter.
Now, people across Scotland have been making the most of the late summer sunshine, which is set to stay until the weekend. But it comes after a very changeable summer season, which has proved problematic for some businesses. Well, our climate correspondent Caroline Lewis is in Kelvin Grove Park in Glasgow now. So, Caroline, what's the latest?
Well, the sun is starting to go down, but as you can see, there's lots of people still here trying to eke out the last rays of the day. But when we look at the summer as a whole, it has been one of extremes. We started with that record-breaking June, where temperatures were in excess of 30 degrees in parts of the country. But that was swiftly eclipsed by an incredibly wet and rainy July, and that followed by a very disappointing August as well. But the sun is back, and people here are making the most of it. Some parts of the country, including Glasgow, could be declared actually in a heat wave if the temperatures stay up over the next couple of days. But for the people here now, those rainy days are long forgotten.
We have been out to the parks, try to stay in the shade though. It's a bit too much for the babies, I think.
I don't really like the heat that much. It's a bit much for me. But yeah, I like coming to the park and just reading a little bit. It's good. It's nice to not be, freezing all the time.
It's a little bit late.
Yeah,
it would have been nice in like July or August.
Yeah.
I feel like we've not had like any sun like this hot all summer really.
Well, outside of the city, and an eagle-eyed person captured this rare sighting of a humpback whale while they were on the ferry across to Arran last night. But while people are making the most of the sunshine, it's definitely an omen of what's to come as our climate continues to change.
Caroline, thank you. Other stories in the West, and administrators for Wilko have revealed the locations of 52 stores which will close after failing to secure a rescue deal. It includes 2 Scottish locations in Clydebank, where 22 people are employed, and Irvine, which has 16 members of staff. Network Rail is being accused of failing to warn the driver of fatal train crash that the track was unsafe. The rail body is being accused of a catalogue of failures which led to the deaths of 3 people. 6 others were injured when the Aberdeen-Glasgow train derailed near Stonehaven in 2020. Network Rail faces charges at the High Court in Aberdeen tomorrow. An elderly pedestrian has died in hospital after being hit by a car on Tuesday morning in Renfrewshire. At around 8 a.m, emergency services were called to a crash involving a blue Ford Focus and a pedestrian on Cambridge Road. The pedestrian, an 81-year-old man, was taken to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. Police are now appealing for witnesses. Now, they're normally off limits, but next week more than 100 historic buildings in Glasgow will throw open their doors to the public for a look behind the scenes. It's all part of Glasgow Doors Open Days to celebrate the culture and heritage of the city. Looking ahead, Darren McRae reports.
It's the world's oldest surviving music hall and one of Glasgow's hidden gems. The Britannia Panopticon entertained the people of the city for 100 years. And it was on this stage, one of the world's most famous comedians got their very first laughs.
Well, probably the most well-known is Stan Laurel, who of course went on to global fame, and he started his career on the stage just behind us. And many others who enjoyed success in the music hall era were on those boards.
The venue is one of more than 100 buildings and monuments people can visit for free during Glasgow Doors Open Days. There's a chance to go behind the scenes at all of them, including the city's High Court, Glasgow Film Theatre and the buses at Bridgeton. And before the festival starts next week, the Lord Provost received a giant key to the city.
It's fabulous. I mean, I've had a go up that stage. It's great to tread the boards of famous people who've been here before in Glasgow over the last 100 years or so. It's great to be part of it. It's great to see the building and great historical pieces in here that are just, it's worth just being here for the whole day just to investigate it.
The festival features a number of tours and talks, all based around the theme of the sensory city.
I think Glasgow Doors Open Days Festival offers an opportunity to really get to know the place in which you live. There are so many incredible organisations working across the city, and Doors Open Days is an opportunity for them to showcase all the great work that they do and to find a way to get into these amazing heritage buildings as well.
Well, I think Glaswegians don't know about their hidden gems. They'll walk past buildings and they very rarely look up. You have to keep looking up to see the heritage buildings and enjoy them when you see them.
A list of all the places to visit can be found on the Glasgow Doors Open Days website. It starts on Monday and runs throughout the week. Darren McRae, STV News.
Now, welcome to Chris with tonight's sport.
Thank you very much, John. Good evening, everyone. Well, we start with football tonight, and Ryan Christie says he enjoyed his greatest night and goal in football, qualifying for the last Euros. Now, the former Celtic midfielder says he wants to replicate that feeling as Scotland prepare for their crunch qualifier away to Cyprus on Friday. Here's Stephanie Daly.
The greatest moments in Ryan Christie's football career so far came when the Scots secured Euro 2020 qualification. A penalty shootout win against Serbia sent them to their first major tournament in 22 years. Now, as Steve Clarke's men prepare for Friday night's Euro 2024 qualifier away to Cyprus, Christie wants to experience that feeling again.
That was an amazing night, my favourite night in football. I think my favourite goal as well in football. So yeah, it was an amazing night. I think, like I said before, in terms of what that win did in terms of our kind of confidence and just almost relaxing everyone going into the qualifiers that were going to come forward after it. You know, it's been nice. Obviously, the last Euros was an amazing experience, but at the same time, I think, you know, the boys are so desperate to keep pushing that, you know, we're almost frustrated of how it turned out.
The Scots top their group, 8 points clear of second place Georgia. Speaking at Hampden today, former Scotland striker Kenny Miller says they should be aiming to stay there.
If we can get the 3 points against Cyprus, it puts us with 3 games to go. I think it has to be the goal. You know, when qualification's the main thing, but if you're sitting 5 wins out of 5 and the only team that could probably come and take you've already beaten and beaten pretty well, I think, at home. I mean, it wasn't a proper dominating, convincing win, but I think we fully deserved the win against Spain at home. So it puts us in a position where you don't need to go and win every game.
Meanwhile, former Scotland defender Tom Boyd has underlined the importance of not underestimating Cyprus.
We've had so many banana skins and we've slipped on quite a few occasions. I can recall, obviously, the World Cup in '98 when we played Morocco, thinking who were ranked higher than us at the time, but we we had a very good performance against Brazil. I had to bail Brazil out in that time. We had a very good performance against Norway, should have won the game, and we thought we'd continue that by just turning. It didn't happen.
Rangers goalkeeper Robbie McCrory has been added to the squad, with Motherwell stopper Liam Kelly and Newcastle midfielder Elliot Anderson having withdrawn through injury. Stephanie Daly, STV News.
Well, rugby now in Scotland. Forward Grant Gilchrist says there's no bigger challenge than taking on South Africa. The Scots get their World Cup campaign underway in France on Sunday, and Jamie Borthwick is there.
It's been the hottest day yet of Scotland's World Cup camp. The players were back out on the training ground underneath the baking Nice sun today, putting in the hard work. And they're going to need every ounce of that to pay off at the weekend, because taking on South Africa is a monumental challenge even for a Scotland team which is being hailed as the best in a generation. And earlier on, I spoke to some of the players who were able to put into words just the size of the task that lies in hand.
As big as it comes, isn't it?
how excited can you be about challenging yourself, individually, collectively against the world champions on the biggest stage in rugby.
So we've got to be on it from minute one. We know what they can bring. They're a very physical side. They showed that against the All Blacks at the weekend, and but I think the way this group has grown over the last 2 or 3 years, especially over this last pre-season, the shifts that we've put in, but it's a challenge that we're ready for.
Yes, the Springboks are determined to lay down a marker in this tournament as they prepare to begin their defence of their title as the reigning world champions.
Scotland's been playing well. They'll come out firing on Sunday, and rightfully so. I think it's two teams against each other, South Africa against Scotland, and that will be it.
Luke Crosby returned to training today for Scotland, but he's unlikely to be ready for Sunday. All the rest of the players, including Darcy Graham, are fit and firing, with just 3 days to go until the big kick-off. Jamie Borthwick, STV News, with the Scotland squad in France.
Some more good news. In Glasgow City are through to the final of the first round qualifying stage of the Women's Champions League after beating Irish side Shelbourne in Lithuania. Well, Brenda Oliveira's solo run, an excellent finish after 53 minutes, was followed up by Lauren Davison. Her deflected shot 12 minutes later, making it 2-0 to Glasgow City. They'll face either local side Gintra or Cardiff in the final this Saturday.
I think we made it harder for ourselves in the first half for sure, but definitely got a kick in the pants at halftime, and I think we came out and kind of proved what we could do, and just kind of took the game to them and did what we needed to do to advance to the next game. Yeah,
good luck to them, and that's all from me tonight.
Chris, thanks very much. Well, we heard about the sunny weather earlier. Let's get the full forecast now from Joe.
Things are hotting up. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello, we keep this flow of very warm air coming up from the south. We've got low pressures out in the Atlantic, and they're going to throw a bit more cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain along the west coast as we go through the first part of Thursday and during Thursday night. But overall, we hold on to the fine weather, the glorious sunshine, and also the heat. Now, it is going to feel very warm through tonight. Temperatures staying up around 16 or 17 Celsius across western parts of Scotland, 16 perhaps overnight for Glasgow. Further east, once more, the Har will be making its way inland and take its time during the morning to nudge back towards the coast. But there will be another fine start for most, just 1 or 2 showers nudging up towards the Western Isles early on Thursday morning, and we could see the odd bit of cloud and showery outbreak later on the day coming up towards Ayrshire and Dumfries and Galloway. But for most, it's a glorious day, much more sunshine around, and those temperatures we're up to around 25 to 27 Celsius, so feeling very warm through Thursday across all of Scotland. By the time we get to Friday, later on there could be a shower coming into the Western Isles, but for most, another fine day, again in the mid-20s. We'll perhaps see more chance of a shower at the weekend, but still heat in the east.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, it started out as a one-off whodunit and ended up being such a hit it ran for almost 3 decades. Taggart was first broadcast on STV 40 years ago today, launching the careers of hundreds of Scottish actors and production staff.
To celebrate, Glasgow Caledonian University is inviting anyone who worked on the show in any capacity to visit and share their story, which will add to their special collection of Taggart archives. Brandon Cook reports.
For 28 years, this iconic theme tune signalled one thing to millions of viewers. The latest episode of Taggart was starting. What began as a one-off pilot called Killer, which followed a hardy detective played by Mark McManus, grew into one of Scotland's biggest exports.
Strangulation with the ligature.
We don't have ligatures in Maryhill.
Now, 40 years to the day since its first broadcast, stories from those who helped make the programme are being immortalised in a university archive. For the next 3 days, a crack team of former police detectives will be on hand to take witness statements from anyone with a Taggart tale.
Our team of detectives, who are ex-detectives from Strathclyde's finest, are there and primed and ready to just tease out those memories. Now, you might think your memory is insignificant. It's not. You know, did your dog walk through set? Do you remember waking up and looking over to Sighthill Cemetery and seeing us filming? Maybe we woke you up because we were filming. Maybe you didn't get to your work. Did we film in your office? Did we film in your house?
Already, the team have noted dozens of stories.
See, I did three Taggarts, and the first one was 3 episodes, and the second one, it was like an hour and a half.
I was a murder victim, believe it or not. My wife immediately phoned the insurance company to try and claim the insurance for me, and my brother, on hearing the story, he was a GP at the time. The first time he saw me, he took my pulse to make sure I was still living, you know.
Taggart. Watched throughout the years, Taggart had Glasgow at its heart.
The last person that did that near me wore his ball's head for earrings.
It told the story of a changing city, one which defined its success.
It's the social history. It's because you have a programme running for so long, it becomes a social history of Glasgow. We teach social sciences, so you start seeing the things that people will just think, oh, it's just a television programme, but it's not, it's an educational tool.
With progressive characters and storylines, Taggart unwittingly broke down barriers. But it all came with hard work.
I remember being made to film during the 1998 World Cup, and we're down the salt market, the streets were empty, everyone was watching Scotland-Norway, and just in the middle of the scene there was this big scream, and we were outside the Tollbooth bar, and I ran out the scene, opened the door to see Craig Burley score in the pub and everyone cheering. So yeah, that was the downside. You never got off for football games.
Loved at home and abroad, Taggart is one of the biggest programmes to come out of Scotland. Glaswegians are proud of it, but would STV ever consider a reboot?
We would love to bring Taggart back. You know, there's this period of bringing and rebooting so many old shows and bringing shows back, and we're always thinking about how we would bring it back. We would love to do that. Never say never.
On its special birthday, anyone with a story to tell has until Friday to officially archive their Taggart memories.
What is that? Mineral water. Nuts. What are you planning to do, hibernate?
Brandon Cook, STV News, Glasgow.
You know, I've actually appeared in Taggart, John.
Really? That's what?
Yeah. A newsreader, of course. Of course.
That must have stretched your acting talents, sure. Anyway.
Oh, you're too cheeky for your own good, John.
All of us.
Good night.